Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. It is Tuesday, August 20th. Busy week. I don't even know. I've been trying to get this podcast together for a couple times. A lot of distractions, babies crying, dogs barking, cats taking down my green screen, you name it. It's gotten in the way. So we'll see if we can put this one out. As always, you can find this in the back episodes of our podcast at our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. Check it out if you get a chance. You can also find them at the aggregators. Now, I have been saying this line for years, and it always comes in, and it's Stitcher and TuneIn and iTunes. We're also on Spotify. I noticed that yesterday. I went to look because we had added that to the group a while back, and I never say it. We're also on Google Play. Technology-wise, I'm not in that loop. I don't know which ones are the more prevalent ones. I know for me it's iTunes and also the YouTube channel. Don't forget that. I'd say from the reports that I get, the downloads are most popular on our website, directly from our website, and through the YouTube channel. And really the YouTube channel depends, and it typically depends on how much I personally market it on social media. A lot of times I get lazy and I don't post it when I'm done. And then like weeks later, people are like, hey, you still doing the podcast? Like, yeah, I do it every day. And they're like, oh, well, I haven't seen it yet because I haven't posted it because I'm lazy. But I gotta get on that. I gotta keep that up. If you're watching on YouTube, though, we could definitely, we could use the subscribers. I hate saying that because I hate when I watch other people's shows. Hit the subscribe button. It's down there. It's down there. It's in one of those corners. But it does matter. It does matter. And we're closing in on 100 subscribers. We'd love to hit that number soon. So please help us out. Hit that button if you're watching on YouTube. But the homepage and the YouTube channel, both, those are kind of our most prevalent outlets, I would say, of the podcast. This weekend was awesome. We had Grace Lindell and her dad, Dean, were here. Grace is 19 years old, finished her first Ironman in Lake Placid, same race that I did, and finished third in her age group. So we had a lot to talk about. It was like an hour and 40-minute podcast. It's compiling behind me as we speak. I'm going to be putting that out tonight, hopefully up on the YouTube channel. First, we're going to get out this podcast today. We'll get out this one, and then we'll work on uploading the next one, which is the Grace Lindell and Dean Lindell interviews. It went really well. It was, I think you guys are going to like it a lot. It's long, but very informative and I think entertaining. Yesterday, I spent all day editing that thing. It was a lot of work. But I think well worth it in the end. You guys are going to see. Falmouth Road Race was this weekend. Katie Mayo, Mary O'Connell finished that one. I think Kat Morrissey also finished that one. Just people we know from the group and have been on the podcast. Congratulations, guys. I've done that race once before. Love that race, by the way. It is a great race. I should probably try to look into doing it. I know it's hard to get into it, but I'd love to do it again next year. Beautiful race. The first mile you run in sort of like this canopied, foresty cover shade, and it's wonderful. And then the next 6 miles are out on the beach. And if it's a hot day, man, it can be oppressively hot. And so you guys had to fight through a pretty hot day, I hear, in Cape Cod. And just all the more to make you proud, feel good about finishing. It's when there's adverse conditions and you can still get through that line, it's always, something to embrace and celebrate. So congratulations, guys. Of course, we also had Ironman Mont-Tremblant, and I should get my tracker here because we tracked a lot of people on race day, and I don't want to forget anybody. The first one I'd mention is Sheila Trelevin, who was on the podcast. We met her at the Ironman Mont-Tremblant 70.3 a month or 2 months ago. She was on the podcast shortly thereafter. An incredible swimmer. She got out of the water, I believe, in third place. We were so excited tracking her. It was like, I think Stephanie and I were like, yeah, we know her, third place. We know she's on the podcast. Really exciting. I don't know, if she place-wise, she probably didn't finish where she wanted to. But in talking to her, she's got the right frame of mind. And I'm sure she finished in 10 and a half hours. That's just incredible. And certainly something to celebrate anytime you finish an Ironman. So congratulations, Sheila. Michael Osborne, I know from Twitter. Great race he put in, 14 and a half hours. Finishing shortly after him was Laura Stebbins, 14 hours, 34 minutes. Laura is just crushing it. Great bike, great run. very impressive. She just continues to get better and better. Although I did beat you in the swim, Laura. I don't know how. I swam in the off season a little bit with Laura in the pool, and she would crush me all the time. I think maybe I just hit that lake, and it's like, I channel my inner flipper. I become like a fish, and it just is like, I don't know. I will concede, Laura, that you are a faster swimmer than me. So, I don't know. You probably just like took a break during the. You're probably talking to too many people during the swim. She's friendly. She likes to talk. Last but not least is that Brian Rogers. I want to mention because I mentioned him last week when we were talking about who I was tracking. Brian is a local guy I see at the gym. I met at the gym. He heard of the podcast a couple times. So he's listened to a few of them. So I was tracking him too. I don't really know his strengths and weaknesses in whatever discipline it was. So I watched him come out of the water. Kind of towards the back of the pack of the people I was tracking. Certainly nothing to be ashamed of. He did great. But then really what I wanted, the whole reason I'm trying to frame this is his bike was just insane. It was really fast. And I just watched him, they list all your people, kind of the people that you track in order of what, where they are in the course and who's ahead of who. And Brian got out of that water and he was kind of towards the bottom and he just started catching up to people all day and finished in 15 hours, 16 minutes. Very impressive, Brian. Congratulations on your first Ironman. And last but certainly not least, Danielle Rosvally, and I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, probably the most entertaining person to follow this weekend. And if anyone tracked her from the group, you got a good show. Danielle put on a great show. She said she expected to finish right around 17 hours, which is the cutoff, as we all know. And I got to tell you, at a certain point in the night, I want to say it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I looked, and her projected finish when she came through one of the timing mats was 12:16 a.m. Typically, they're going to cut that finish line off around midnight, so 12:16 would be too late, and she wasn't going to make it. And it's sad for me because I obviously have been in that position before. And it's those people that put in, a full day of working out, a full day of racing. And yeah, you're going to, at that point, obviously you're walking a lot of the marathon, but it's still, you're out there and you're trying your best and you're putting your best foot forward and to finish at 12:16 and to not get the pageantry and the medal and whatever is just a travesty. So we were rooting for her to kind of, rally towards the end, and she started doing it. And she started improve and unfortunately the pacing is in kilometers. Thank you, Canada. So I don't really have a good frame of how fast she was moving, but you could tell she was improving from timing mat after timing mat. All of a sudden she kicked it into third gear with probably somewhere between 3 and 5 miles left to go, pedal to the metal. And I'm like, oh my God, she's really moving here. She's really going to put a good effort in. And then at 11:45 p.m., I fell asleep. I did. I had a little wine. Just leave me alone. I fell asleep, but I woke up the next day and I'm like, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, how did she do? Did she finish? Still thinking that probably she didn't finish. For her to rally from that point would have been an incredible, amazing feat. And I didn't think she was going to finish. I just being honest. And I know the course too. And the course at the very end is downhill, but you got to kind of climb into the town. And that last climb is pretty tough. And it can certainly it can take a lot out of you. Sort of similar to Lake Placid in that vein where, you got to go up the hill towards town and then up Mirror Lake Drive and then turn around and back down. Very similar to Lake Placid and how it's kind of set up. But going up that last uphill, I didn't know that she would be able to summon the speed to do it at that point in the race. But I turn on the tracker, and wouldn't you know, Danielle's final time, 17 hours, 0 minutes, 58 seconds. Now, if that's sounding familiar to you, and you listen to the podcast, there's a reason. It's because that is exactly the time that I finished Lake Placid, to the second. To the second. How insane is that? To the second. So she must have made it through. I don't know how she summoned that. I was never down to 12:16 a.m. I was never projected to finish that late. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as a compliment, because it means that she had way more to come back from than I did. So for her to do that, I mean, it's almost like it's like ungodly. And so I talked to her afterwards, and we're going to have her on the podcast this weekend and talk about this epic finish. I need details. I need to hear about it. And if it's even close to what I imagine, I'm sure it's going to be an entertaining story for us to hear. And then last but not least today, I do want to shift to one other thing. And that is this, is that, I kind of felt the last few weeks is like, all right, I'm going to have Danielle on the podcast. I think this is a worthy story, something that we should all celebrate and talk about. I think it's going to be very entertaining. I talked to Grace Lindell and her dad, Dean, both Ironman finishers. We talked to Charlie Duffy last week. I did my Ironman recap the week before. I feel like I'm getting away from a certain part of the bread and butter of our group here a little bit. And we're kind of becoming an Ironman podcast. And I don't really want that. It's like I got to kind of like pull myself back here. I don't really want that. So I just want to expressly talk about this. I just want to bring it up front because I don't want people to get to the page and go to the discussion group and be like, hey, this page ain't for me. I'm not an Ironman. I'm not, these people are too advanced for me. And I just want to share that I don't think that's the case. And I'm going to tell you why. I think all of us on the page and in the discussion group, we all started the same place. We have very few people who have been runners all their lives. Talking to Grace Lindell actually this week, she's 19 years old. She's done cross country. She was running Ironman kids races when her dad was doing the Ironman when she was younger. She's had it in her life the whole entire time, and I appreciate that, and I admire that. I do think that most of us in the group, though, are people who have kind of picked up running later on in life, fell in love with it for whatever reason. And it's kind of like a strange love-hate relationship, right? You're out there sometimes and you're like, why am I out here doing this? Why am I suffering? It's hot. I'm sweaty. My legs hurt. But there's something primal about it. There's something that gets you in touch with sort of an inner part of yourself that you don't get if you're sitting in front of a TV watching sitcoms or reality TV or whatever crap is out. It's very hard to think for yourself when you're being distracted by other things, right? It's very hard to focus on improving yourself, as a person, not even just your running. So all of us at some point had to take that first step, had to decide, hey, let's try this running thing out, or let's go out, even just to start walking, maybe meeting people and going out for a walk or. I mean, we've been walking Ellie lately. We walk her to Dunkin' Donuts and back. It's a mile there, a mile back. We'd go up a big hill. It feels like exercise. And it's great to get out. And people should do stuff like that. And you want to encourage people to do things like that. And, my fear, I guess, is that by having Ironman after Ironman after Ironman, talking about Ironman incessantly, that it just gets to be a little oversaturation, a little overkill for the people who are out there running a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, are thinking about getting up and starting tomorrow. Look, it's a long journey to Ironman for sure. But gee, my first 5K, February 2nd, 2014, something like 130 people showed up to the race. I finished third to last. The two people behind me walked the entire course. A 9-year-old passed me at the finish. And if you don't think that race is meaningful to me, how in the world did I remember all those details? You're all going to hit those goals, whether you're a newbie or you've been at this for years. You're going to hit those goals. You're going to run faster. You're going to run farther. You're going to want to do better. You're going to be on the other side too. You're going to fall into a rut. You're going to feel like you're training your butt off, but your times are getting slower. You're going to feel like you want to be training, but for whatever reason, you can't get your butt out of bed. You can't get your butt off the chair. You can't get into the gym. You can't lift the weights. You don't feel like doing it today. You're going to go through all these periods of time. And I love our Facebook discussion group because I feel like we have a really great balance of that. And what I mean by this is that I go on some other pages and some of them are obnoxious and some of them are funny and some of them, and I got to kind of tread lightly here. because it's a real issue. But sometimes I go on pages and I'm just depressed. And I feel like everyone's depressed and they're all just mired in their own depression. Now, depression is very real, and I've certainly been through some of it myself. It's very real, and it's good that we acknowledge it, and it's good that we encourage people to talk about it. But sometimes I feel like when you get too many people in the same kind of state and they're all depressed together, that there's not enough positivity and encouragement to move forward. And I feel that sometimes when I go on pages. I sense it. And I feel, I sense that sometimes there's encouragement. It doesn't always feel real, or it doesn't feel, I don't know. I just feel like it's too much depression it's almost unhealthy sometimes. And I'm not going to single any group out. It's not like it's one or the other. It's just, I feel like sometimes I go on these places and I get sad, and I never get sad on our page. And I feel like we just have a nice balance of encouragement, of, positivity, of support, good energy, positive energy, certainly tons of accomplishment. And I want to make sure that we're open to everybody, not just people doing Ironman, not just people doing marathons. In reality, the name of this group, Ordinary Marathoner, was created because I felt like a very ordinary person. I didn't necessarily ever feel like I was athletic when I was younger in sports, but never running, never competitive in sprints or able, or being the fastest kid in the class. Without, I've never felt like a fast person. I entered the sport for the for myself personally, but then I found camaraderie here and I found a whole support system, and it's really excellent. And it's excellent. And there's something primal about running, man. You just get out there and you sweat and you just get in your own head, and it just feels good, and it feels positive mentally and physically. And I feel like I just want to make sure that we stay open to the people that need it. And I need it, certainly. But what I'm saying is I don't want to not include people that are just starting out. I want to encourage you. And if you're sitting there and you're just popped on YouTube and you're happen on this video, and now you're like looking and you're like, this guy's a jerk. Yeah, maybe. But maybe you look at it and go, geez, it took him just a few years. And I know people who have turned, from couch to Ironman even shorter than it took me. I never had Ironman as a goal. It just kind of, I stumbled on it. And goals don't have to be all long term. They can be medium term and short term. And goals can be, I got out there that first time and I ran a quarter mile, but I couldn't run anymore. And the goal was run a mile, get to a mile. And I trained, and I couldn't even train. I wouldn't run because I felt embarrassed every time I would run. And I couldn't make a half mile, like barely make a quarter mile. I would have to stop and walk. I didn't want people to see me on the path, because I felt like I was the fat guy on the path trying to run, and I felt embarrassed for myself. I've been through that stuff. I would go on the bike, and I'd wake up early, go on the bike, ride for 45 minutes. I'd go to work, come home, I'd ride for another hour. Burn the calories. I'd monitor the diet. All of a sudden, something flipped. Something switched in my head, and I got the discipline. I found the discipline, and I was doing it, and I was losing weight. And I remember finally, after about a month and a half, I went to the gym. It was January, and I'm like, let me get on the treadmill. It's time to see if this is working. And I'm like, I remember thinking maybe I could do a mile today. Probably not, but it was due for a test. I got on that treadmill. I started running. I had the music in my ears, and I just was like, all right, let's just see how far we can go. And my goal was to get a mile, and I did it. I did it in probably, I want to say 11, I would guess it was 5.2 miles an hour. I remember that number, 5.2 miles an hour, 11-minute, 45-second pace, probably right around there. And, I wasn't a speed demon by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't need to be. I just needed to do it. I just needed to finish a mile and run a mile. And I got to the mile, and I was like, I still got some in the tank. I kept going, and I'm like, And eventually I got to a mile and a half, and I thought to myself, all right, I'm good. Like, this was like well above and beyond anything I could do. And the thought that I could do a mile today was a stretch. And now I did a mile and a half. I was starting to feel a little bit sore, so I stopped. But man, what a great day. What a great day. And I remember feeling that way. And the feeling was excellent. The feeling was just amazing. And whether it was that day or the first 5K that I ran or the first 10K I ran, which was a month later in March of 2014 at the Holyoke Road Race, or the first half marathon I did, which was in late April at the Cheshire Half Marathon. I remember the second half marathon I did shortly after at the Iron Horse in Simsbury, Connecticut. I remember the New York City Marathon. I remember registering for that and telling someone I registered and having them laugh in my face. And then doing it. 5 hours, 15 minutes, 5 hours, 16 minutes, something like that. And, yeah, I mean, I don't need you to run. I'm not trying to sell you on running. But I know how good it made me feel. And if you want that, if that's something that you want and you're just starting out, there's no shame in running a quarter mile. I'm ashamed that I was embarrassed to run on the trail because I felt like I was the fat guy on the trail. And I thought that people would they'd look down on me or whatever. And I got to tell you, I see people that are overweight running on the trail, and I want to give them a big hug because I was there. But I don't, because I know that when you're doing that, you're very sensitive. You're out there and you're trying your best. Just know that, you pass a person like me, I'd love to give you a hug, but my sense is that you're so, people are so sensitive in that moment when you're just getting going, and you just think people are taking pity on you. You don't want that pity. You're out there doing it for yourself, and it's in your head, and you got to do it, and you do it. So I'm not going to give you a hug, but know that I'm supporting you. Know that I want you to succeed. Know that I want you to have the feeling that I had when I started accomplishing these things that I never thought I could do. And that's kind of like the sense and the feeling that I want to get in this discussion group on Facebook that we have. It's a support group is what it is. And whether you're an ultra marathoner, an Ironman, a marathoner, or just starting out, half marathons, 5Ks, that's your bag, that's awesome. Or if you haven't taken a step, I tell you what, and I've kind of been back and forth on this in my own head, and I would love to do this. And I think I've mentioned this before in years past. I never kind of had a volunteer step forward. I would love to find someone brand new who's sitting there right now saying to themselves, man, I got to get moving. And I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stay motivated. I don't know how. I would love to get that person on the show and do like a 5-minute segment every week. It doesn't have to be long. Just a 5-minute segment, touch base. How you doing? What's going on? How are you improving? Are you staying with the program? Are you not? If anyone's got the guts to do that, reach out. Let me know. Because I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to do that. I know it's hard to put yourself out there. But look at the people out there who have done it. People out there never thought they could do a marathon, out there doing it. And that can be you. You don't have to put that right in the forefront of your mind. It doesn't have to be like on your plate. You don't have to finish a marathon next week. That would be insane. You gotta, you start off in the beginning. You always start in the beginning, and then it grows and you get better. And that's all I really wanted to say. That's all. I had to say it because I kind of felt like we've been leaning towards Ironman, and I don't want to abandon the people who are just starting. I don't want them to come to the page and be like, "Oh, I don't belong here," because you do. Because we all started there, except for Grace. She's insane though. Wait till you hear this podcast. It's really good. It's really good. Anyway, I'm gonna let it go with that today. That's all I got to say. Guys, amazing job at Ironman Mont-Tremblant this weekend. I'm just in awe every time I see a race like that and see all you guys finish, man. Danielle, what an amazing job. We're going to have you on the podcast soon. We'll talk about it. All right. That being said, let's move on. Let's get into the week. This podcast will be out soon. Then we'll have the Lindells. That'll come out tonight. We'll talk to you again later this week. And remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. So get after it, guys.
Remember to like our video and subscribe to our channel.